So, hey, welcome. This is LJ. I'm LJ or Laura Jane, and this is what I like to call the Tune You podcast. And like I was just telling Reshma, who's here with me today, I wake up so excited on the days that I'm going to record such a thing with someone like Reshma, because this is really just me sharing what inspires me, what feeds me, what kind of stories and people I want to share. So I wake up just so happy on these days. And I'm so thankful, Reshma, that you're here with us today.
Thanks, LJ. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm glad we connected just recently.
Right? I think it was about 2 months ago or so, right? And we met at Erin's gorgeous event as a mental health and even suicide awareness event that she put together, which was just beautiful and powerful and so connecting. But you and I both had been invited to speak a little bit with what we have to share on these kind of topics. And yeah, I just felt like as soon as I got to meet you, and I love that we got to hang out also, is
Yeah.
it worked out with the night that we were at the table talking and just hearing some of your story and then what you're up to now. Just I right away was like, right, I can I please have you on the podcast? And I know that you
Yeah.
said, well, yeah, I've already got a few I'm booked for. So I love that you yeah, that you're being so brave to share your story. And obviously it's needed and having a real effect. And that's, I see that you're engaged in life. I don't want to say busy, but engaged in life in a great way. And what seems like your passion and purpose. So that's, yeah, why I love to share meeting you. And so thank you. Yeah, so I feel like I'd love to just give you the chance to share how you like to share, like who you are, what brought you here, and we'll get to talk about what kinds of things you're doing with your work and creating and family life. So, yeah, for as long as you want to, as you are so awesomely willing, I'd love to have you share more of your story.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So you mentioned Erin's event with mental skincare. It was to raise awareness around mental health and suicide prevention. And I know you were there speaking about mindfulness and yoga for mental health. And I was there speaking about suicide awareness. I lost my husband to suicide in 2022. And we had just separated from the Army 9 months prior. We had moved from the South to Washington State, where forever was supposed to begin for him, for me, for us together, for our three kids. And it was a shock when he took his life. I say now, after processing more and learning more about the risks and what people go through when they have suicidal thoughts, that I'm not surprised that he didn't want to be in the world anymore.
Mm.
I'm shocked because he was a go-getter. He never gave up, very hardworking, very highly accomplished person. But to think about how much pain he might have been in at that time in his life, how much pain he had been hiding from the world, it makes sense that he felt like this was the only way to stop feeling that pain. So we lost him in September of 2022. We had just moved to the Seattle area a few months before, and I made the decision to stay for the rest of that school year to keep the kids in the school that they had just started in and to try to keep our life as normal as possible. And then 9 months later, when they were done with that year, we moved to Southern California, where I met you here in Orange County. And I started to share my story a little bit about a year and a half after he died during Mental Health Awareness Month in May of 2023. And I wanted to do that for a couple of reasons. I wanted to raise awareness around mental health. I wanted to talk about suicide and suicide prevention. But I also wanted to share with the world that healing is possible. You can go through this kind of tragedy, and as long as you take care of yourself, are authentic and true to yourself, and look for connection and community, you can find the light again. And it doesn't mean that you get over grief or you get over your person. It just means that you do eventually learn how to walk with grief, but also see joy around you and to feel joy around you. In doing that, in sharing those things on social media, I started connecting more with people. I started learning that I wasn't the only one. And especially in the South Asian community, it was an eye-opener for me because I had a lot of South Asian people reaching out saying, I've also lost someone to suicide, and I haven't been able to talk about it. I haven't been able to process it. I haven't been able to fully grieve it. And with the continued connections and conversations, I realized that this was work that I wanted to do more of. I want to share my story, but I also want to support people who are going through something similar. Whether you've lost someone to suicide or you've lost somebody to something else, or you're just struggling and trying to find balance in life. So that's what's brought me here. I officially started offering grief support and mindful healing support earlier this year. And I also got certified to teach yoga this year. I've always been certified to teach kids. I'm also trauma informed. So I'm just kind of exploring all the things that are available to me. I'm constantly learning on my own and from other people. And with all of that, I just hope to inspire and to continue serving and supporting those around me.
Mm. Just such a the ultimate shamanic way of having a life experience shape your path, right? And that
Hmm.
the the shaman or the shaman is that they go through their own healing and then share that as they're teaching. And I love so much how you found the strength and resolve, and I definitely would love to hear more about that to even get to this place of what you might say is like positivity or just hope, right? And even a story of proof that it's possible, right? It's just like I love that it builds the belief for all of us of what we can cope with and how we can handle life and how we can heal. And so I think one thing I want to ask more about is, and maybe this will be part of how you could share what helped you get to this point, and I'm sure this is some of what you're teaching and sharing, and that you're talking about it as this mindfulness healing. And I think it's so fascinating to consider that more mindfulness could be the medicine for something like grief. Because I was thinking about that because I feel so in awe of how much just the simplest practices of mindfulness can help with so many things, right? And I think the main piece I've learned and needed to bring in for my own reasons is that compassion, bringing that piece in is one of the biggest pieces. But but yeah, because grief seems like something like it would be so hard to want to be present with, right? Because it is one of these. So it would be it would seem very almost natural to want to not face it, right? And not feel it and not be present with it. And I'm sure there's lots of ways people do that. So yeah, tell us more about that for you personally and now what you'd like to share as far as how do we switch that and instead of realize it's about really being present with it in these mindful ways that can be healing.
Yeah. Well, as you know, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment, right? So with that, you are required to or asked to sit with your present emotions. And with grief, there's a whole range of emotions. It's not just sadness or pain. It's, you know, fear, anxiety, um, anger, resentment, relief sometimes. And so
Mm,
it's, guilt. it's a huge range of emotions. And unless we give ourselves time to sit with all of those emotions and learn from them and process them, it's really difficult to start to heal.
Mm,
And we've heard so many stories of people who just push it to the side for so many years. And then later on in life, it might not show up visibly or right in front of them, but their body
mm,
tells them,
mm,
right? We see studies where people who went through traumatic events or faced immense amount of grief, they and don't work through it later on, they have a lot of health issues. And so you're right. It's mindfulness is such a simple thing. There's so many simple tools and practices within mindfulness, but they're so powerful. And even just taking a minute to disconnect from everything and just be aware of your breath tells you so much. If we're sitting for a minute and we're noticing that our breath is up here in our chest and it's short and it's labored and it's rough, well, that tells you something right there. You need to extend the breath, deepen the inhale, extend the exhale to really ground yourself. Um, and so it's just, there's so many practices that tell us about our grief when we don't even know how our grief feels sometimes.
mm, mm. Yeah, and I love how some of what you're bringing in is that it's about these sacred pauses, right? I've been loving that terminology that I got from Tara Brach, I think. Uh, but that it is, and I even saw a study on the internet a couple days ago, it was calling it micro meditations, that we now see that micro meditations could be such a powerful practice. And like you're pointing out, it's really just about being willing to pause and check out how we're doing and how we're feeling, and then bringing in that compassion and unconditional friendliness is such a big part of that. But then also using the simplest of practices to shift and change that and kind of take care of that, right? And I love the simplicity of that and how it can be so transformative, right? So I am in awe of how it is this simple presence. It's really our natural state too, which is so wild, right? It's like bringing us back to how babies are,
Hmm.
um, that we've been trained out of. And yeah, I think it's important that you bring up that we now know such a holistic awareness is that it's all connected. So a lot of our physical illnesses and ailments we now know are caused by this kind of chronic stress that it puts on the body to have that emotional pain that we're not letting ourselves face and feel. But I feel excited about a more modern awareness, even though it's probably more of a primal teaching, that it is about just
Hmm.
being more present with ourselves and being willing to feel and face our feelings and know how to deal with them. And it's so exciting to think about sharing that with children. So yeah, I mean, I know
Hmm.
you're doing a lot of like children's programs and work with families.
Hmm.
Is that, I mean, I'm starting to realize you're probably talking about this with them and teaching this. Yeah. I mean, will you?
Yeah. Yeah. Locally, I teach kids. I've taught kids virtually as well and teens. And, kids yoga and mindfulness is not going to look like an adult yoga class, right? And I think sometimes parents don't understand that and they're hesitant to sign their kids up. But kids yoga and mindfulness, I might do 3 yoga poses, but the rest of the hour, we're talking about our emotions and we're looking at emotion cards and really, connecting the visual of the emotion with the feeling of the emotion. And we're talking about gratitude and kindness and not just being kind to your friends, but being kind to yourself. So, like you said before, compassion, we talk about compassion for others and for self. And, the moving of the body is more of a way to just get yourself prepared for the breathing and the, tapping in to see where you're at, how you're feeling. And the other thing I really love about kids yoga and mindfulness is that a lot of the kids who circle around don't realize what they're there for. They don't realize that I'm giving them tools to help them with emotional regulation. And it teaches them so much more than how to regulate their emotions and how to move their body, but it teaches them how to connect with others. It teaches them how to share, how to actively listen. And those are all skills that we're kind of losing right now because of social media and technology. And we're outside most of the time, which is even better, to be in nature.
Oh, I love so much that you're teaching that this is yoga and it's just a little bit about the poses.
Hmm.
I agree because I used to teach a lot of kids and family yoga, and 100% I was all about letting it be this very different and even playful time. But for me, it's really been new and fresh to get into how much yoga is actually all about this taking care of ourselves emotionally. And I've been seeing it as a system of psychology for a while, but I adore that you're bringing that forth and teaching that to the kids. You're like, this is yoga. Because how many of us, even if we think we like yoga, have no idea actually that this is what it can be about, and that that's what you're supposed to be doing within a pose, and um yeah, and that it's also about how you're being in the world with the kindness and the gratitude, and that is all what yoga teaches. And I love to remember and share again and again that yoga just means union, right? To join.
Hmm.
So anything that can help us do that, but with ourselves, with others, with the world, with our emotions, with our body, and so I am so happy to hear that you're sharing it like that. And it's like creating this new generation of humans, right? And it is really
Hmm.
an amazing way to change the world, right? That by helping
Yeah.
individual humans be able to regulate like that, right? But a lot of it is just being willing to be present and checking in with ourselves, right? Much less knowing to do what to do once we get there. uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And I want to add, I feel strongly that if our family hadn't had a yoga and mindfulness practice in place, um, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today after my husband passed away. My kids had been doing yoga in some form from the time that they were little. And during COVID in 2020, when we were quarantining, I was doing more of the mindfulness practices with them. So we were going out in nature and doing our five senses grounding activity, and we were journaling and we were meditating and noticing our breath and talking about emotions. And 2 years later, their dad dies. And, you know, that's when you really need to understand your emotions and how to express them and how to ask for help. And I think that if we hadn't done that and also talked about mental health before he died, I think we would have had a much harder time starting to heal. And, we still have a lot of challenges and we will for the rest of our lives. But I think my kids are doing pretty well overall because we were able to bring these practices and tools into our home and they know what works for them and what doesn't. And they know how to say, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm mad at dad for doing this. And now I feel guilt for saying that. They're very aware of their emotions and how they come up for them in their bodies.
which is like a super skill in these.
Hmm.
And and I love that, such a blessing that you kind of, you could say, happened to or perfectly had already been in those practices with your kids, and that you were ready to utilize those as part of dealing. And I love that you mentioned too that not everything works for everyone, right? We all are
Hmm.
different. So to feel into what practices, I don't know if I want to call them all practices. I mean, it's practices, perspectives, and psychology is the way I like to coin it. And I love
Yeah.
but that's so powerful. And so, what kinds of things? I mean, do you still utilize these practices, and do you like encourage for families? Like, what kinds of things do you love to share as ideas that families with kids of maybe all ages, or even people who don't have kids, how can you bring this into the home more? Because this feels very leading edge. right? Because so often there's maybe one person in the household who does yoga, quote unquote, right? And sure, that can help everyone, but or hopefully it's more of a culture. But yeah, how do you find the practices and such? And yeah, any ways you're willing to share what you've noticed has worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned this. I know I've said it too, but it is really important to emphasize that there is no one size fits all. And so if I tell somebody that I've been journaling almost every morning for the past 5 years, that doesn't mean it's going to work for them.
Mm.
Um, just like I know what doesn't work for me. I'm never, well, I can't say never, but meditating for more than a few minutes sounds like too much for me. And I'm not ready for that yet. So everybody kind of is drawn to different things. And I think it's interesting because just looking at our family, myself and my kids, everybody has different practices and tools that they like. My son really needs to move his body,
How old is he?
and he's 13.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just needs to move his body, be outside. And I used to say he needed to breathe, like be aware of his breath. But recently I've noticed he really needs connection.
Mm.
It's very easy for him to just get onto his school laptop and start, going to all the things. But if I sit next to him and I engage with him, he's very quick to put that away and he doesn't mind. And he has a lot to say. And so for him, it's more about that now at this stage in life. And for my middle one, she's very quiet. She doesn't share openly unless prompted or unless something's really bothering her.
And how old is she? Not to judge,
She,
but just for other.
oh no, that's okay. Yeah, no, I think it helps. She's 11
Okay. Yeah.
and she but when she does speak, it's profound. It's like, oh wow, you've been carrying that for a while. I'm just so glad you got that off your chest. So for her, it's more about journaling, and she's really good about taking breaks. She will go to her room and set a timer and lie down
Mm.
on her own.
Huh.
And my youngest one, who's 10 now, she is a free spirit, and you really cannot like contain her. You can't give her too many things to do or make her life too regimented. When she's kind of showing that she's feeling down or her light's dimming a bit, I know that she just needs to be outside barefoot, playing with rocks and sticks and dancing around.
Mm.
And when they lost their dad, the youngest had just turned 7, 6 days before he died. The middle one was 8, and my son was 10.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I think that for families, it's really about connection. And so choose something to do as a family that everybody feels truly connected in.
Mm.
And for most of us, I think that is going outside, playing outside. Especially here, we have sun almost every day of the year. And even when we don't, it's still pleasant enough to go outside. So I think going outside, nature walks, and make it fun. It's not just a walk where you're marching together and nobody's talking, and maybe people don't want to talk about anything in particular, but do something like an activity. I mentioned the five senses grounding activity earlier, and that is just calling out 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, and I might be mixing some of these up, but 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste, and then people just call them out while you're walking.
Mm. I love.
Um, Another fun thing to do outside is to pick a color and then just name all the things you see of that color. And
Mhm.
so it's a great way to connect, to have fun, and to ground yourself and move your body. And it's just doing so much good for everybody, but not feeling like work.
Ah, yes, I think that's perfect. And I love these all feel like games even. And
Oh,
I think that's perfect that you are sharing that these are the kind of things you can be talking about as far as mindfulness practices. It's not about getting out the yoga mat and saying, okay, guys, let's do sun salutes or let's sit on a pillow and meditate or let's, right? That
yeah.
it's these more seemingly general things, but especially in these times, such a different pace and moment for most of us versus at home on the devices and the busyness of life. Yeah, and that these are all parts of what help us get more connected. And I agree too that it's all about connection. And I love as a parent something that, and my kids are now 21 and 24. But I remember hearing early on, making it about your connection with your kids, like having that be the top priority in your how you're approaching your parenting, right? And I have loved that, and I love that now. I do feel like I have such a great connection with my kids, even though they live in different states, and I still miss them every day. but but I do feel, and so it's just worth it. You know, I feel like that's a no regrets kind of thing for families and parents, right? But also realizing the medicine of that and yeah, that just being ready to connect and listen and finding ways to do that. So that's beautiful. Well, God,
And I would say for in the home, one of my favorite things to do with the kids is to share gratitude.
mm,
I think it's really important for kids right now, whether you're grieving or not, or have had any hardship or not, our kids are constantly comparing more so than we did growing up. And it's because they have access to social media and the internet. And I know I've seen or heard my kids comparing themselves to other kids or what they have, what they don't have. And so sharing gratitude at the dinner table at night has been a nice way for them to be reminded that they do have a lot of good in their lives and they have a lot to be thankful for. And because of that, we want to compare less and we just want to live more in our own lives.
mm,
And the fun one that we do is the rose, thorn, and bud
mm,
exercise. I don't know if you've heard of it. So we go around the table and everyone shares their rose, which is something
mm,
something good that happened that day, something they're grateful for from that day. And then a thorn is a challenge they had.
mm,
But maybe we even add, like, how did you get through that, or what did you do? And then a bud is something they look forward to.
mm. A bud. Oh, that's great. As something to look forward to. Ooh, I love these ideas. Yeah, and I feel like I'm excited to implement them. And I'm thinking of all the people that I want to send this podcast to.
Yeah.
So I love what's coming through. Well, gosh, I'm noticing we're getting towards our 30 minutes, but if there's anything more you'd like to share, and I also would definitely love for us to have you share any ways people could follow you and be a part of things you're creating and offering or sign up for your classes. I just saw a post about a kids yoga thing that you're doing in Orange County. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so use that time however you want and please.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'm on Instagram under Reshma Kearney, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. I'm really good about getting back to people in my DMs. I have a website under the same name. And here in Orange County, I do teach kids yoga and mindfulness. Our next dates in November are, ooh, I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but it's the first Saturday and the third Saturday of November at 10:30 in the morning at Turtle Rock Park.
And what age is that for? A 10?
That's for 5 to 12.
Hmm,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a nice wide range of ages, and it's an hour. And there is an event at Poppy Seed in Woodbury Town Center on November 14th at 4 p.m. And I will be doing kids yoga and mindfulness, and I'll be doing that with Dr. Kanika Kadakia, who is the CEO and creator of Teddy in Trouble.
Mm.
So she will be talking about empathy with the kids. And I have a virtual holiday grief support series this year that starts the week of November 17th and ends early January. It's 8 weeks. Each week is themed around grief during the holidays, talking about things like naming your grief, how to address traditions, changing traditions, setting boundaries. And then as we near the end of that, we talk about reflection, processing, and setting intentions for the new year. And that's one-on-one. Um, Weekly calls in between contact with me, journal
Mm.
prompts. So I have 3 spots open for that.
That sounds like so helpful. I love that you thought to create such a thing, especially at the season. Yeah, wow, I love all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the holidays are really hard. I remember my first holidays. They were like an outer body experience. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know how to navigate, and I didn't understand how I was feeling. And so I just don't want anyone to go through that the way I did. And I think it would have helped having someone kind of showing me the way and guiding me, letting me know what was to come, what to expect.
Mm, mm. Well, I'm so thankful that you um, have allowed this to, br- bring you into this next level of your sharing and helping. And it's just amazing. So I'm so impressed with how you've handled it all and just inspired by what you're doing. And I love it all so much. So yeah, and I'll
Thank
love
you.
it. Either I'll figure out, either I'll listen to it back or have you share me those details so I can put that in my post if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Reshma.
Thank you, LJ.
Yeah, and I'll be in touch because I have some other ideas, some things I want to invite you to co-create on.
Okay.
Uh, but have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for being here and sharing your story and work with us. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for holding space for me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, so good. All right, thank you, and thank you who have been here with us. So appreciate it, and we'll be back soon. But sending love to you all. Okay, thanks, Reshma. Bye bye.
Bye.